Okay. So hopefully, all the audio and stuff should be working. It's been a very long time since I started doing any of these. It's been months actually since I last uploaded a video, to be honest. So I apologize for anyone who was, awaiting the next video. I mean, there can't be many people. I can't imagine people are clamoring to see the next Owen McDonald video. Um, but yeah, it's been a bit of time, and I thought that I should update the happenings on the channel. Um, so today, as you may have gathered from the title, I was going to talk about abortion, and more specifically, a tweet that I made, which someone responded to, but I wanted to have a little look at. Um, because it's an important issue to talk about, given the happenings over in the States at the moment. Um, so to set the scene somewhat, in America, there's been a total ban on abortions in the state of Alabama, which is pretty terrifying, really. You can imagine, if you're someone who can get pregnant, to have your autonomy stripped away from you like that is pretty horrifying, especially when it's done by people who are essentially just wanting to control the bodies of other people and enforce their view and social ideas um, onto people who, you know, don't necessarily share them, and certainly onto millions of people who just want control of their own bodies. It's a pretty terrifying time. But to go into specifics, I wanted to look at when my screen share decides to switch on. Here we go. I wanted to look at this tweet I made. So I don't want to blow my own trumpet or anything, but it's a pretty basic tweet. I thought, in response to the horrible actions of the Republicans who passed that motion, that bill, I thought I would just make a little tweet to in case it wasn't obvious, or show solidarity with the excellent activists and generally excellent people who are going to be fighting this bill and having to live with the consequences of it if it reaches a more terminal stage. Um, so my tweet reads as follows: Abortion, the facts. So while all these are facts, I sort of did it a little bit tongue in cheek to sort of goad those who don't necessarily think abortion is a good thing, because such unscrupulous characters should be derided and mocked, because people who want to oppose a basic human right should be targeted like that. It shouldn't be allowed to exist without being humiliated. Um, anyway, first one, it's good. Um, yeah, essentially, abortion is good. It's a modern um, medical sign of progress that we're even able to see people develop a fetus and then have the choice to continue the pregnancy or abort it, as the as the name describes. It's if your contraception doesn't work, oh, well, actually, I can get an abortion. If you're not able to healthily deliver a baby, oh, I can get an abortion before it even comes to the point where it's coming close to the delivery date. Um, it's just about giving people more freedom and choice. So it's a pretty easy statement to say that it's good. As we'll go on to in a minute, a few people in the replies took umbrage with this, which I'm not too fussed about, because some people will have that thought. Next one, it's not murder whatsoever, and no, it's not. If I shoot someone, who's alive, that's murder. And to compare that to aborting some undeveloped cells in the womb, that don't have like any thoughts, any idea or resemblance to human life, it's pretty insulting. Can you imagine, like you've just given birth, and then like a doctor or some horrible person chucks your baby out the window, And then someone says, "Oh, actually, that's the same as having an abortion." It's like it's absurd. It's quite insulting and demeaning to people who are actually murdered to suggest that a person, seeking an abortion and having autonomy over her own body to, get rid of some cells they don't want developing into an eventual human, is, one and the same. It's just not murder whatsoever. And again, there's someone posted an image in my replies, which I think pretty much illustrates some of the problems over anti-abortion rhetoric. Next one, it should be freely available. And yeah, it's abortion is a form of healthcare. It's a way of people, controlling their body and thus making sure it's healthy to their own satisfaction and needs by, controlling the cells that operate within it. And thus, as with all healthcare, it should be freely available as a human right. It should be the right of any person, no matter where they are on the planet, to say, I want to do this with my body. I want to have access to the healthcare I need to control my body. And that's the same with anything. If you have an injury, if you've got a disease, you should be able to access the cures and medications for those diseases and illnesses as freely as possible. And seeing as you can perform abortions freely, yeah, it should be free. It's healthcare. It should be free. That's a basic human right. And anyone who says otherwise is opposing that human right, opposing that autonomy. Next one, it's a modern scientific achievement that people can attain one safely. Yeah, pretty simple, isn't it? You imagine like hundreds of years ago, you discover that you're pregnant, and you don't discover it for any technology. You discover it because you've literally got something growing inside you. And maybe if you're unlucky, you don't discover it till you're actually visibly developing the bump in your stomach. And by which point, it's like it's not much you can do about it. Whereas today, you can check using modern technology. You can stop the pregnancy before it even really starts to affect you, which is a massive positive. And that you're not having to go to like dodgy backdoor clinics in quotation marks. You can do it safely at a healthcare center is amazing. And again, it's very similar to healthcare in general, right? Instead of having to go to less than scientifically viable options, you can go to a healthcare professional and have any form of healthcare performed safely. Now, obviously, in my country, we have free healthcare, and though it's currently being attacked by the austerity policies of our right-wing government, it's still light years ahead of America, where lots of people die needlessly from diseases and illnesses they could have had cured had the healthcare not been priced off by profiteering capitalists. But yeah, even ignoring all of that, or even including all of that, even you still see the modern world provide an opportunity and a way for people who become pregnant to have control over their own body and stop something they don't want happening from happening, which is brilliant. It's an excellent sign of how scientific research can further our control of the world around us. It should be celebrated. And the last one, opposing it means you oppose bodily autonomy and are believing fascist ideas of patriarchy and cis-normativity. So as we've already mentioned, bodily autonomy, very simple, control over one's own body. And it's a very important constituent of, human rights. For me to be able to say with my body, I want to do what I want to do with it is very important. And that's for anything. That could be, if I want to get a tattoo, then that's my choice. It's my body. I'm able to do that. If someone said, oh, no, you will not have this tattoo, and I wanted one, it's like, well, what right do they have to say what I can do with my body? And just as equally, if I was to say to someone else, so I really think a tattoo would look great on your arm, and they're like, oh, well, I don't want a tattoo. Like, it's their bodily autonomy. I can give as many pointers as I want. At the end of the day, it's their body. They're the only one who gets to, make the call. And that's a simplified version of what's happening here. If you're going to say to someone, you cannot have this abortion, then you are undermining their human rights to their own body for the sake of whatever contrived horrid ideas you have. And it doesn't matter what justification of which there is inevitably none. It doesn't matter what justification you give. The bottom line is, they're an autonomous person, and they don't have to listen to your ideas when it comes to their body. But going on to these next two, fascist ideas of patriarchy and cis normativity. So as you're seeing in America in recent months, well, I say that it's sort of always been a conservative talking point, but certainly with the recent bill being passed and the efforts of conservatives across the country to try and curtail abortion rights, often the target is aimed at women, cis women, because the roots of patriarchy are a right-wing form of hegemony, of a way of controlling a population through subjugating them into different social groups. The idea that women are subservient to men, that they should be the people who are at the home, provide make breed the kids, feed the kids, manage the home, while the man earns the money and is the head of the house and stuff. All that sort of nonsense. By removing the right for a woman to give birth, you remove control of her own body. You deny them, the bodily autonomy we were talking about a second ago, and subsequently you're taking away part of their freedom. You're saying to women, you cannot have this feature of you cannot have this basic control of your own lives. Now this, for one, allows them to then combine their loss of autonomy with another form of losing autonomy, anti-sex ideas. The idea that women shouldn't be quote unquote promiscuous, that they should keep sex within marriage and only have one partner, and all the other backwards ideas that you see lots of traditionalists and conservatives sort of saying. You can see the shaming of women who decide to be open with their sexuality and stuff, who don't defer to such a model of thought. And the removal of abortion rights allows them to then portray the women who are doing things outside the traditionalist model as bad and reckless, because they're getting pregnant and they don't want to be, and they're bad because they've got kids and they didn't want them, and all those sorts of things, and the stigmas that conservatives help to have crafted through patriarchal web that society still is entangled with. And that argument, that line of thinking, is held up in massive part by the anti-abortion movement, in which a lot of women are trying to fight against it because they don't want to regress back to a time in which conservatives can weaponize their own bodies against them through horrible bills and policies. And it allows for the ideas of conservatives to be embedded across different aspects of it. If you're gonna derail reproductive rights, you can also then derail contraception and the sex education programs. In America, you already see incredibly backwards and laughable sex ed programs in place of what should be actual modern knowledge and information being told to people. And subsequently, if you're attacking one part of the sexual information that we should have a right to, you're then going to lose out and make the case stronger for denial and regression in other parts. And subsequently, all this regression is a sign of the patriarchal social order being reinforced, being dragged back, undoing the progress which has been made. And what is patriarchy? Patriarchy is the social hegemony that places men above women, and subsequently, this is another form of hegemony, another form of maximizing your power over others, and thus links back to the right-wing model of society, in which you're always striving for hegemony, you're always striving for power, you're trying to exploit others to benefit yourself. Ultimately that's what hegemony is. You can look at the so that's what patriarchy is. It's another form of that power dynamic, the unjust hierarchy. Just as the expectancy that women should do all the household labor is a way of a man being able to profit from the unrewarded labor of another person. The anti-abortion rhetoric feeds into this power dynamic. And I've also, after that sort of divulge onto patriarchy, we also should look at the next word, cisnormativity. So I was speaking about women for a bit with patriarchy, but it's important to remember that it's not just women who get pregnant. Pregnancy isn't limited to a single gender, and reproductive rights are for all. People who have a womb have reproductive rights, and thus that expands to all genders. All people who have wombs in society are affected by anti-abortion movements. But cisnormativity is obviously the erasure of non-cis parties in society. So when we think of non-binary people who can get pregnant, and trans men who can get pregnant, and people who don't fit the sorry, people who don't fit the model, say, of men and women, you see them being erased by these bills because it allows bigots to shove them into the other category, the a category that doesn't even need thinking about. Let's say you've got a man who ends up pregnant and can't get an abortion because they've been outlawed. What are they going to do? They are then castigated by these same bigots for being a man and being pregnant, because under their model men don't get pregnant. So they're already facing erasure from some corners. But similarly, the LGBTQ representation or lack of representation through such oppressive bills allows them to reinforce the patriarchal worldview. A man married to a woman, and within a family unit, if you've got people who don't fit that model in society, that hurts the fascist model of power and the power structure, and thus you're going to see people on the far right pushing for anti-abortion bills and stuff, because it helps them erase the healthcare rights of queer people, of people who don't fit the outdated old models. It becomes beneficial for people of the far right to push this, because it allows them to erase LGBTQ people. It allows them to say, oh, well, women shouldn't be doing this, and forget about the rest who also can get pregnant, but we will willingly misgender and not even recognize as real. It's silly, but it's a major part of the anti-abortion movement, the erasure of people who do not fit under the cis woman label, and thus are erased by people who have the direct interest of erasing LGBTQ people. And yeah, going back to the main point, if you're gonna say to someone, I don't think you should get that abortion because I think abortion is bad, and other rubbish like that, you're feeding into those ideas. You're feeding into the patriarchal and cis-normative social views that say that women shouldn't be able to control their own bodies, that say that queer people don't even have bodies to control to begin with, because actually they're just X or Y. It's silly. It's a major talking point for the far right to, you know, degrade and erode the progress we've made with our, you know, our own bodies, with our healthcare, with normalizing the fact that, yeah, it's good, it's a good part of society for people to be able to control their own, you know, bodies and have, you know, to decide whether they want to be pregnant or not without affecting anything. Anyway, there are 5 main points, and that was the main focus of the stream. But I wanted to move on to some of the replies I received. So let's have a look. That's just the a reply I made myself. But yeah, this person wouldn't say it's good, like ITTJ. Now, am I missing something? I don't know what ITTJ stands for. So we'll wait. I'm sure someone will tell me in the comments or something, or in the live stream or something. But no, you know, wouldn't say it's good. Like, how is it not good? How is it not good for people to be able to control their own bodies? To be able to say, I am pregnant, I don't want to be pregnant, let's change that, let's get an abortion. You know, you combine this with, you know, good sex ed, you know, available and accessible healthcare, you know, regular supplements, regular availability for like contraception, and, you know, it becomes a fully like healthy and safe and secure means for people to operate. There's no way in which it's not good, you know, unless you believe all the, you know, fairy tale nonsense that conservatives do about like how babies are literally like, you know, put they like they, you know, we'll come on to an image in a minute, which is pretty silly. But you know, the people who think that babies are literally being like chucked into like furnaces and stuff and all that nonsense. You know, this person says, at what stage does it become murder? And it's like, well, it's not murder. You're not murdering anyone. You're not murdering an actual person. You know, you're eliminating some cells. You're, you know, getting rid of stuff that will eventually become a human. But, you know, it's not actually a human. It's not emotionally a human. It's not anything. It's no, you know, it's just a part of the person who, you know, has the body, the actual person. This person, Taylor, who I actually quite like, says it's neutral, not good. Which, you know, again, I'll disagree. How is it not good for people to be able to attain control of their own bodies and to, you know, think, oh, you know, I had sex, but, you know, for whatever reason, my contraception didn't work. Instead of it being like, oh, I must have a pregnancy, I must, you know, have a child that I don't want, I must put my body through, you know, major changes, I can just, you know, cut the process completely short and get an abortion. Like, how is that not good? Here we go. This is the nonsense picture I was talking about. Like the idea that like this is actually what happens like in most abortions is just utterly like absurd. Like as though like you're pregnant and you just instantly have like a fully grown baby just waiting to be born. Like it's just ridiculous. I love also like how they use 2 different fonts for the same thing. Like surely there was not much else that was going to be you know, written here. Like do we really need to change it? But no, it is silly, really. Like the idea that this you know, they're literally just ripping babies out and destroying them. It's just nonsense. Like that's not the case in the vast majority of abortions. And you know, with proper sex education programs and, you know, contraception, it's not, you know, it wouldn't be the case at all. And then Zachary says, yeesh, I mean, I agree with most of this, but it's wrong to call these subjective opinions facts. And it's like, are these subjective? Is it subjective to say that healthcare is a right, that, you know, getting rid of cells is not the same as murder, that it's good that people can have access to healthcare, that, you know, far right use and capitalize on the degradation of bodily autonomy? You know, these things are good, and we shouldn't be afraid to, you know, say that. We should be proudly standing with the idea that people can get an abortion. We should be, you know, getting rid of this, you know, conservative notion that abortion's this you know, necessary evil, when actually no, it's a wholeheartedly good thing that people can have reproductive rights. And what's the last one going to be? Erica Trump says, "Oh, do please fuck off." Lovely Erica. I'm sure you really had your best intentions when you wrote this. But Erica, do you reckon they're even a real person? No, I doubt it. But yeah, that was essentially that was essentially what I wanted to talk about today. Just an overview on the abortion um, topic, really, like, because it's an important one that we should all get behind. Standing with those like who have wounds and thus are affected by this thing, because it affects all of us. We shouldn't be allowing ourselves to let this slide. We should be making sure that abortion is available for everyone. And subsequently, that involves that involves openly and proudly saying abortion is good, and shutting down those who say otherwise, and certainly not allowing conservatives to control the conversation with their heinous, incorrect, terrible opinions. Anyway, that's essentially what I wanted to talk about. I think that should be a wrap for the stream. Once again, apologies for not having more like content on here, because I really ought to post more on here. It's been quite a while. Hopefully I can address that with more more things like this soon. Yeah, thanks everyone who watched, and yeah, abortion's good. And if you are in a position where you want an abortion, you are well within your rights to get one, regardless of what some conservative says. Good night.